Good evening. Welcome to my video series. Today we're going to talk about the natural progression of Alzheimer's disease. But before we start, to all our Chinese viewer and also listener, 恭喜发财，龙年进步，龙马精神。The year of dragon symbolizes a year of abundance, authority, and fortune come your way. And this is our sincere hope. Good evening again. My name is Dr. Dennis Wong, and I'm actually at Prime Garden Mount Albert North, in Mount Albert North, in Melbourne. If you missed my couple of other previous talk, don't be worried. You can request a link to my two YouTube series and via email. Now, tonight we're going to talk about the natural progression of Alzheimer's disease. Let me just outline the significance of this issue. In 2022, dementia was diagnosed every 3 seconds in the world. So as you can see, that it is not a benign condition, and it is a condition that's worthy of our time to understand and also to research into. Back home, as we can see, the data starting from 1935 onwards to 2024 and another 10, 20, 30 years projection. It clearly shows that a percentage of Australian population age 65 are increasing over time. It's the so-called baby boomers. It is true that Alzheimer's disease happens more commonly and frequently in people who have age, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee that is the situation. Very unfortunately, the global survey of attitudes to dementia, although this data was a few years ago and is still very recent and current. And I know it's a very busy slide. I want to draw attention to the bottom left corner. It says the attitude of the healthcare practitioner, like myself. Actually, in fact, 2/3 of us still believe that Alzheimer's disease is actually part of aging. And in fact, I can tell you categorically, it is not. It happens in people as you get older, but it does not necessarily mean that you are guaranteed you're going to have this. Thank goodness for that. And the rest of the page points out about the experience of the carer and also the other issues associated with dementia, which I will go through them in my next 2 or 3 series. I really like this picture. I usually use this a lot in my other previous talk as well, because I think this is a very good summary in helping us to understand the different parts of the brain and their particular functions, which is in the next slide. All our attention is focused on this little organ about twice the size of a sesame seed called the hippocampus, which is deep down inside our brain. Now, I'll call this a manufacturing center. Why is that? It is a center where we put all the raw data and raw material together and then make a product, in this case, a memory. In the next slide, I will point out different parts of the brain will have different function. Your eye sees some information, your ear hears some information, and your tongue tastes some different food. All this then information will be going to this hippocampus. And it is in the hippocampus that decide what material and what information and what memory worthwhile to be kept. And is it a short-term memory or is it a longer-term memory? So it is critical. In people with Alzheimer's disease, the first sign or the investigation that we've done all pointed towards that this is the first part of the brain that has been affected, and hence the people will have difficulty in forming short-term memory. So hippocampus, a critical structure, not more than twice the size of a sesame seed on both sides. There are 2 of them, a pair of them. It's called a manufacturing center. very briefly go through its different lobes and the function of each lobe of the big brain. First one is the frontal lobe, which is the front. The front. Now it controls the movement. It's also very critically important in a person's ability to make a decision when the time comes. It's also very important as a problem-solving part, planning, attention, and also emotional regulation. This is what we call so-called being a person. When you were thrown a 1,000 information, or you were put on the spot to solve a very difficult situation, you would need to have the ability to gather all the necessary information, and sometimes you will require to problem solve there and then, and planning what to do, and to prioritize your tasks. These are all functions of the frontal lobe. The parietal lobe, which is the top part, outside top part, just after the frontal lobe, is important in processing sensory information such as touch, temperature, and the pressure. And it will process this sensory this information and coming from the hippocampus, and then to store it as a long-term memory. Temporal lobe, which is just behind your ears on both sides. By the way, we're talking about two sides of the brain, two lobes each. It is very important in processing auditory, meaning that what you hear. So it makes sense because it's just behind it here. And also form some memories as well. And lastly, the occipital lobe, which is the back. It is critically important in processing visual information. What you see, it goes into the hippocampus. It manufactures, it sends it back to the occipital lobe, and then it would then store as a long-term memory. These are way too simplified, by the way. I'm just really too simple. I've simplified the information, but this is what I'm doing here. Now, there are many types of memory. Before we know to go through the natural progression of Alzheimer's disease, which is a neurodegenerative disease, we must know what types of memory we are talking about. The first memory is called the sensory memory. For example, if you go out and you saw a lightning, for example, that split second that you see the lightning is called the sensory memory. And if that image, or if that smell, if that sound is of some importance or significant to you, it will then store and go into what we call a working memory bank. Now, sensory memory only have the capacity to store information for 3 to 5 seconds maximum. Then, if you decide that it's of significance to you, for example, you smell something that you smelled before, or you say, this is an interesting smell, I never smelled that before, I want to work on it a little bit. And then that means you're progressing into working memory. Short-term memory have the memory for about 20 to 30 seconds, 10 times longer than sensory. Now, it is in this short-term memory processing that you can store, and short-term memory you can store 2 or 3 different information. For example, you are walking on the street in Barcelona and you smell something that you have never smelled before, and it captured you so much that your short-term memory capture and remember the smell. Then you remember that today is the 14th of February, and then also remember I'm walking on the street in Barcelona. Multiple information, up to 9 sets of information can be stored in the working memory. Then this memory will then transform into a long-term memory as an episodic memory, which is the part of the explicit on the right-hand side. So long-term memory is something that is long-term. Under it, it has 2 categories called implicit and explicit. Explicit memory can be then divided into semantic, meaning that something you have to learn. The elephant has a long nose, a trunk, I should say. That is something that you learn, okay? A leopard most likely have dots on it. So these are the things that you learn as a child. You put them into long-term memory. It is a fact, if you like. Now, episodic memory, which is also another example, explicit energy memory, is something that you have learned, but then learned through experience. Just as I said, I smell this smell. It is fantastic. I've never seen it before. Today is very special. It's Valentine's Day. I'm walking with my girlfriend down this little aisle in Spain, in Barcelona. Very special. You would then transform that into a long-term episodic memory. 20 years down the track, if one day you happen to smell that smell, it will bring the whole episode of memory. Not isolated, but also the entire picture will come up. So it is entirely recalled. You can actually recall and broaden this memory out of conscious. You can then say, I remember that was very, very special. So then you have implicit memory as well. So those are explicit. Implicit means procedural. What does it mean? That means that's something that you've learned, for example, riding bicycle. You don't have to recall. You've learned the skill, it is there. You drive a car, you hop in the car, you learn to drive a car in the past. It is in your long-term memory. You don't have to recall, and you can't recall it. It just happened automatically. So that's different types of memory, and this is again another picture showing pretty much the same thing. I'm not going to repeat that. Now moving into what happened in the stages of Alzheimer's disease. In Alzheimer's disease, what happened? I know this is a very, very busy slide. Don't worry, I'm going to break it down in the next few slides. In fact, Alzheimer's disease can be broadly broken down into 3 stages. The first 2 are called pre-Alzheimer's disease. The second is called Alzheimer's. So the 3 stages altogether. The first one is called preclinical, the second one is called prodromal, and then the last is the Alzheimer's disease. I'm going to explain each one to you now. And what do we do about it? The first stage is the pre-Alzheimer's disease, which is preclinical. Now, usually we assess, there are 4 aspects in this stage. If we look at the cognition, the general memory, it's very, very subtle reduction in short-term memory. Sorry, the arrow should be up there. I don't know, it went haywire. And a very, very subtle reduction in the ability to store information. But functionally, they are completely normal. Day-to-day function, still go to work, still can be an accountant, still do tax return, still do everything. No problem there. Behavior-wise, people start to maybe notice that you are not as interesting as before. That you're a bit disinterested and disjointed in your conversation, but nothing too serious. Now, usually at this stage, that if you do investigation, involved in a very complex scan and also very invasive investigation into the fluid surrounding your brain, looking for the protein, which in series 1 and series 2 we can talk about, called amyloid protein. So again, if you miss those 2, you can email us, we can send you the link if you're interested. So this is the preclinical, a very, very subtle change in the short-term memory. And what do we do about that in this stage? When you were formally told you are in preclinical stage, I strongly encourage people to start to talk about the power of attorney, getting your will done, getting your financial planning done, and most importantly, the cognitive therapy and assessment must be done by a specialist, and the specialist involved will follow you through that stage. At Prime Garden on Albert North, we provide this sort of service. I am a dementia specialist, and I accept referral from the general practitioner to assess your cognition. In the not distant future, we will have a diversional therapy group, which is a daycare center. In this daycare center, the diversional therapist is going to go through some cognitive therapy in trying to maintain one's cognition. Again, if you want to know a bit more, please feel free to email us at info@primehcare.com.au. After preclinical stage, we have prodromal stage. Prodromal obviously progress a little bit further. With the cognition, is an obvious decrease in the short-term memory. Learning skill is starting to reduce. Usually not too bad, very, very good with computer. Now download a new software, don't know what to use it. Planning skill is down. For example, someone might be very, very good and love planning for a complex holiday. But now asking him to do a planning for a holiday, it becomes very difficult. So there's obvious reduction. Function-wise, starting to struggle in day-to-day activities, especially those that are good before. For example, cooking. Mom or dad loves cooking, but now that they seldom cook, and when they cook, the taste was very different. That's the comment that I usually get from family member. From a behavioral perspective, it's starting to become quite irritable at times. Because as an individual, they know something is not right, but they couldn't really tell what is wrong. Hence, the irritable, because they have some reduction in their ability to reason things, decrease in insight, and become rather disinterested in things. The investigation is the same, doing some scans, but at this stage, the scan is pretty definite and almost always positive if the doctor knows what scan to perform. So what can we do about it when you were told you were at prodromal or mild cognitive impairment stage? We can consider medications. There are some evidence to suggest that it worked, but not very strong. The mainstay of treatment is still intensive cognitive therapy in a specialized center like us, who knows what to do, who are dealing with this, who are passionate into helping people in this stage to maintain their cognitive function. I strongly encourage people to start talking about driving and also getting home care package from the government, talking about living as the assistant in day-to-day living, because it is actually very, very likely that they will need some assistance in a not the very distant future. So again, if you are struggling to understand or wanting to know more, you can always contact our center. Send us an email at info@primehcare.com.au. Now, come to the third stage of Alzheimer, which is the Alzheimer's disease itself. It's clear impairment in multiple domains. This person needs setup and supervision in most aspects of their function. And there is behavior-wise and personality changes. This is very, very tricky. And hence it is a very difficult behavior and might emerge and difficult for carer. And again, we can help the carer to resolve the help of these issues. With regards to the investigation, CT scan and MRI, if needed, to exclude other lesions. Usually, clinically, an experienced physician will be able to tell. At this stage, we'll continue cholinesterase inhibitor as in the medication. We must manage the behavioral challenges. And we must also talk about advanced care plan or end-of-life wishes. And we must discuss with the people about the future living arrangement. Is this the beginning of the end? Is it time to give up? Because giving people a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, to some, it is like a life sentence. They are right in the sense that at the moment there are no effective treatment for this condition. But there are emerging evidence to suggest that AD, Alzheimer's disease, is not an irreversible condition. Because Alzheimer's disease is caused by multiple factors, or at least 36 factors are found to contribute. A new school of thought has emerged from United States of America, and we have in the past shown a video series about the memories for life, about reversing Alzheimer's disease. If you're interested, please email us. We are going to have another a session very, very soon. And depending on how many of you would like to attend, and we will definitely have another session. That's all I have to say for now and tonight. If you want to know a bit more and miss my previous 2 talks, you can always go to YouTube and download this. Or if you want us to send you a direct link, please again send us an email to info@primeagedcare.com.au. Have a wonderful night.